The United States has applauded the meeting between the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Pakistan counterpart Nawaz Sharif yesterday, as senior administration officials said they were cautiously hopeful about the improvement in the relationship between the two South Asian neighbors.
A senior official in the Obama administration said, and I quote, "We are cautiously hopeful that the Modi-Sharif meeting could be a positive indicator, but we are also mindful that this will be very important to the dynamic in the way going forward."
All right, joining us live now from Lahore to get an expert view of a person who's been in harness, former Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Ms. Hina Rabbani Kar. Ms. Kar, thank you very much for taking the time out, joining us this morning on Wake Up India here on Headlines Today. What did you think, ma'am, of the invitation to Nawaz Sharif? The issue of terror was raised at the meeting. How, in your view, will Pakistan or should Pakistan respond?
You know, I wouldn't, for instance, not being in the meeting, know what Pakistan's response to that was. But typically, you know, I am completely of the view that we have to get out of this, what I consider to be ancient context of these are India's issues and India will score points when it raises them, and these are Pakistan's issues and Pakistan will score points when it raises them. Because what is important is that we are able to move forward towards a peaceful coexistence, which would require for us to move away from accusations and towards constructive solving the issues for both of us. So typically I think there's a lot of point scoring that happens, especially through the media. I am very unsupportive of that because I think terrorism is a bigger issue for Pakistan than it is for India.
Right.
So we are glad that India raises it. We are ourselves very concerned about the terrorism obviously that takes place in Pakistan. And we do know that through Afghanistan there are many countries which operate against Pakistan's interest. Now these are all facts. However, in order to move forward, we have to move away from what we know to be facts. So I think it's important that we are able to put the context right. And typically, you have to create space for each other if you mean business.
Yeah.
Right.
I believe Pakistan does mean business. So we have to create space for you and your Prime Minister to be able to move forward. Now, if after a meeting, the media hype is around scoring points on, yes, we did raise that and we embarrassed them, that does not increase space, that contracts space. I'm fundamentally against that.
Right. Ms. Khan, I'd just like to ask you, given what we already know, what do you think the key takeaways have been from this meeting? Is there something substantive to build on now after Modi meeting Nawaz Sharif?
I think, typically from a meeting like this, there were not expected to be too many takeaways for either Pakistan or for India. I think typically in both our countries, the hype around any meeting, and certainly meetings between Indian and Pakistani heads of government, typically overlives its due sort of worth. And so this was a goodwill gesture from both sides. We were happy to receive on behalf of, like Pakistan, I think, consider it to be a goodwill gesture on behalf of the newly elected Prime Minister of India to invite all SAARC leaders, including Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, which was reciprocated because you do remember that there was another invitation sent from this side of the border to the other by Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif elect to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, which was not reciprocated, and there was no, the Prime Minister of India did not come. So what enabled Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to take up this visit was obviously the deep political consensus that exists within Pakistan for improving and normalizing relations with India. And I would like to take credit for the Pakistan People's Party as the main opposition party, which supported his visit. So I think this shows that in Pakistan, the political consensus that is required to pursue healthy coexistence, peaceful coexistence with India certainly exists.
Ms. Kar, President Karzai's interview to Headlines Today, which has set the agenda, many media agencies in your country have, followed it up very strongly. He's blamed terrorism in general and specifically the attack on the Indian consulate in Herat on the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Inter-Services Intelligence of Pakistan. It's a very direct statement that he's made.
Listen, President Karzai has a long history and a very consistent behavior of blaming everybody. Pakistan, the US, falling short of I don't know how many times he might have even blamed India. So I won't take that very seriously because, the best way to deal with your own incapacity and incapability is to pass the buck and the blame to another country or another person or another entity. So the list of accusations by some leaders there on practically every country and everyone other than themselves is a very long one. So I won't take that very seriously.
Ms. Kar, final question before we let you go. There's so much riding on what's going to happen from now on, but there's a lot of skepticism also about whether, your Prime Minister has the backing of the Pakistan army. If that doesn't exist, what's the point of wasting time talking?
Listen, I think these are again questions which are typical of the Pakistan-India context. We did not ask and we do not ask whether Prime Minister Modi, before inviting Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, got the backing of RAW and the military in India. And I think Pakistan is a functional democracy. The same question in the same way must not be asked of Pakistan, in the sense that, you see, what is important and which you allow me to say, which a point that India and an opportunity that India is consistently missing is that in Pakistan, what exists is a broad political consensus. The military has to be supportive of whatever the political leadership decide or pursue. And the broad political consensus that we see in Pakistan currently does not exist in India. So this is an opportunity that India must not lose. You must grab this opportunity, rather than accusations and point scoring. And I'm not even now going to put a negative tilt to this entire meeting. I think by and large, the gestures in themselves hold importance. By and large, hope was created. By and large, hopefully the two prime ministers had some good rapport. I don't think, currently at least I'm not in a position to give a judgment call on it. Clearly in a while we'll hear more about the insider view of what happened in the meeting. The statements are typical of both sides, so I don't think I would read too much into that.